How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? It has been a long time since we have done a hot takes video. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know I used to do these every week, but have since switched to doing it just occasionally. And given it's the off season now for the Bulls, I wanted to take some time, see how you guys are feeling about the state of the team, what to expect in the off season, and wanted to get your guys' hottest takes and my reaction to them. So that's what we'll be going over in this video. And also a big shout out to Sorare for sponsoring the video, but more on that in a little bit. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Our first take comes to us from David Mays. If the Bulls win the lottery, they trade the #1 pick to the worst franchise in the top 3 picks for their top 3 pick and as many unprotected picks as the CBA allows. You know, I saw someone on Twitter the other day, and I wish I remember who it came from. They put out a poll on whether you would want the Bulls to keep the #1 pick and draft Wembanyama, or basically do what the Bears did and trade the #1 pick for an insane haul, because you know you likely could get a massive amount for a chance to draft what is supposed to be one of the greatest prospects of this generation. Now keep in mind, the Bulls have such a small chance to land the #1 pick, at 1.8% chance of getting it. So we're talking about a very unlikely scenario, but it is an interesting thing to think about, because on one hand, yeah, you're landing the #1 pick and drafting a prospect of a lifetime, but at the same time, we don't know for sure that he is going to pan out in the NBA, and everyone likes to talk about his size and slender frame, how that could be a risk for future injuries, as we have seen from past very tall players in the NBA. And if the Bulls were to get some crazy package for him, I mean, it's worth considering. I personally think if you get lucky and you land the #1 pick, yeah, you got to keep it and just take Wembanyama. Like, you may never have a chance to draft a player of his caliber and potential like that again, but you mentioned trading it with one of those bottom 3 teams. So let's say it's the Pistons, Rockets, and Spurs. Now, I believe the CBA does allow you to trade draft picks 7 years out into the future, but you can't trade consecutive picks because of the Stepien rule. That being said, though, I don't know if that would also apply to picks that aren't their own. So for example, I'm thinking about a team like the San Antonio Spurs, who are going to be one of those teams that will get a top pick, and they will also have 3 picks coming their way from Atlanta in the DeJounte Murray trade. Can those picks be included as well? Even if the picks come back-to-back seasons, can it still work? And 2 of those picks are unprotected, so to me, that would be the most enticing. Again, it all depends on the number of picks that they would actually be able to get back, and trading for the #1 pick. Are we talking 2, 3, 4 picks? Because at some point, it becomes a no-brainer that you make that trade, not only because of the fact the Bulls don't have that many picks for their own future, but also the draft capital could be used as trade assets for their future, which has limited the Bulls currently when it comes to making meaningful trades when they don't have the picks necessary to include in deals with other teams. Anyway, this is an interesting one, and I may have to make a video on that in the future. Next up, we've got Steve Torres. The Bulls hire Nick Nurse ASAP. Yeah, it's not happening. Not after they just gave Billy Donovan that contract extension. If you caught my interview with Casey Johnson earlier in this week, I asked him if Billy would even be on the hot seat if the Bulls started faltering again and missed the playoffs next season. Again, this is talking about next season, not even this offseason. He said no. So no, not a chance. The front office just fires Billy and hires Nick Nurse, even though I would actually be for that move. Next, we've got Andros Mack. Bulls pursue Christian Wood and Nick Claxton this offseason and increase Derrick Jones Jr.'s role off the bench. So Claxton isn't a free agent this offseason. He's still under contract for 1 more year, so that would have to be done via a trade, and I can't see the Nets doing that, as I get the sense they really value him and what he brings to the court with his rim protection, rebounding, and improving in his overall scoring. He's also young, having just turned 24, and will likely be a part of their rebuilding plan after ending the KD-Kyrie experiment and getting a lot of draft picks in return for it. So yeah, I mean, I would love Claxton on the Bulls as their starting center for the future, and if there was a path in getting him, sure, pursue it, but I just don't think it's going to be an option. Wood, on the other hand, he's a free agent. It's possible, but you also have to remember the Bulls don't really have a ton of cap space to work with this offseason, since Wood would be an outright free agent signing unless they executed a sign and trade of some kind to be able to use his salary to operate over the cap. And from what I've seen, Christian Wood is looking for a nice payday, given he's outplayed his current contract and is a fairly versatile big in that he can play the 4 or 5. A lot of this just also depends on what this means for Vucevic. Is he coming back? If they slide Wood to the 4, what does that mean for Pat's overall minutes? So it's hard to say. Before I get into the next take, I wanted to quickly tell you about today's sponsor, Sorare, which I am super excited to tell you guys about their platform, especially considering it is free to join, it's super fun, and you get to win prizes, collect digital cards, and assets in the form of NFTs. Unlike most sporting apps, they are different in that it's actually a fantasy gaming marketplace. There's no gambling or betting of any kind. The site enables you to play where users own their players forever. Think of it like you're a GM creating your own dynasty and you get to compete in fantasy competitions for great prizes. Users are owners or general managers of their team, making trades, buying and selling players, etc. And unlike other gaming sites or betting platforms, it doesn't cost you anything to play. You can start for free. I've created my own private league where you can compete and play against each other for great prizes and offers, so check it out if you're interested. Join my private league. Link to that is in the description. We got some great people in there, and thanks again to SoRare for sponsoring this video. So next up, we've got Joshua Rosen, sign and trade Vucevic for Mitchell Robinson or Nick Claxton. Again, sure, that's good for the Bulls, but why would the Knicks or the Nets do that? Sure, it might be an upgrade to their current center starting spot for now, but not for the future, given how much older Vucevic is, so yeah, I don't see it happening. Next, we've got Chatbox. The Bulls should try and trade for Zach LaVine to the Blazers for either Shaedon Sharpe or Anthony Simons. This one is interesting because if the Blazers truly still are committed in building around Damian Lillard, and Dame has already said multiple times he's not interested in building for the future and doesn't have an appetite to wait on guys being ready 3 to 4 years from now. So if the Blazers are going to stick with Dame and keep him happy, going after a win now piece like Zach LaVine could be one of those moves. I just don't know if the Blazers are actually going to do that. I really think that they're going to work with Dame and his camp on trying to find him a trade this offseason to just start rebuilding after that. I really can't see them making one more all-in push to get a win now team for Lillard. They're going to try to maximize Dame's trade value and just focus on rebuilding, especially if they land a top pick in the draft, which they definitely could this year. But trading for Sharpe and Simons, again, if the Blazers are looking to sacrifice their future to win now, yeah, I would go for that, although you would have to work on the money side of it because LaVine makes considerably more than Sharpe and Simons. The Bulls might have to take on a bad contract or two as salary filler to match LaVine's contract. Next up, we've got upset Bulls fan. Coby White is better than Patrick Williams. I mean, it's easy to say that when Coby had himself a nice season, the better season anyway for him. They're very different players, and while I'm glad to see an improved Coby White, I don't know if I would still consider him to be better than Patrick Williams overall. I still think Pat is a better all-around player when you look at both ends of the floor. I still think Pat has more potential than Coby too, so no, I don't agree with this take. It's a good hot take though. Next up, we've got Miso. Once inserted into the starting lineup, Coby White will flourish into a great floor general, averaging 15 plus points per game and 5 plus assists per game, and will lead the Bulls offense to a much more fluid and efficient style of offense. I'm not saying it can't happen because I do think there is a world where we could see that from Coby, especially if he continues to make further progress from this season. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does in fact get the starting point guard spot for this upcoming season with Lonzo remaining out. But I don't know if we'll see Coby being that missing piece as a starting point guard for this team like they had in Lonzo, and I don't see him putting up over 15 points per game. I know he was doing that in his second season when he was starting, but he's not going to be putting up those kind of shot attempts if the Bulls do decide to run it back and keep all of their big three in DeMar, Vucevic, and LaVine. Next up, we've got Windy City Vids. If Vooch doesn't re-sign with Chicago, I think for Chicago, Jakob Poeltl would be a good option. A great rim protector, good shot blocker, and can get easy shots. If Vooch leaves, we should sign him. I could get behind this. Again, this is assuming Vooch walks in free agency. Poeltl would be a good option. You guys know I think Poeltl is one of the more underrated bigs in the NBA, and he is going to be a free agent. It's interesting to see if the Raptors look to re-sign him, though, because they did just trade for him. Are they really going to let him go on a half-year rental after they traded 2 second-round picks and a first-round pick for him? So I have a hard time seeing them doing that and just letting him walk for nothing. I mean, in the event they do actually let him walk, yeah, Bulls should pursue someone like Poeltl if Vucevic doesn't re-sign, that is. I mean, if Vucevic doesn't re-sign, you're going to need a starting center, and Poeltl foots the bill for that, and also younger than Vucevic, being 27 and in his prime. I'll end it there for this edition of Your Bulls Hot Takes. I'm sure I'll have more of these throughout the offseason, so be on the lookout for it, and continue to leave your takes in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.